Well, it is a privilege to call to order at about 7:08 p.m. on November the 1st, 2022, to call to order the 2022 special town meeting of the town of Hingham. We have a quorum present, and I would now invite forward Cantor Stephen Weiss of Congregation Sharei Shalom to give the invocation. Cantor Weiss.
We pray together. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors. As we gather here this evening, we ask for your guidance, wisdom, and support while we further the work of democracy, the work of hearing and listening to the voices of this community, to working together to make our town a better place for ourselves and for our children. We ask your blessing on those in leadership who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and to do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to do so. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of this community. May the spirit of peace, dignity, and respect live within these walls, inspiring us to care for one another with compassion. And may we be a source of goodness, light, and healing for our world. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. May God give strength to all people, and may God grant us abundant health and peace. And let us say together, Amen.
Thank you, Cantor Weiss. Next, I invite Keith German, our Director of Veteran Services, forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand if you are able. Face the flag of our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. German. Carol Falvey has informed me that the meeting appears to have been properly and duly called. There is, of course, available this evening in each venue the booklet that contains the warrant for the meeting that includes the recommendations of the advisory committee. I will note that I have appointed Karen Johnson as an assistant town moderator to preside in the auditorium, Russell Kahn to preside in the cafeteria if that venue is necessary, and also Jennifer Gay Smith, who is presiding in the courtyard. In addition, we have appointed citizens of the town to serve as tellers for any standing votes or any ballot votes. As our tradition, I have admitted to the meeting a number of guests. We are delighted to have them with us. They are not allowed, of course, to vote on any matters coming before the meeting. If a guest were to want to speak, the guest would have to seek the permission of the meeting to address the meeting, which would be done by majority vote. I would like to recognize particularly Joan Moschino, who is with us tonight, our local state representative. I know that Patrick O'Connor is hoping to be with us tonight, our state senator, and also Congressman Stephen Lynch has come down again to his district, and Congressman Lynch, I'd ask you to rise. Thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure to have you and to host you again. On behalf of all citizens, I'd like to thank Harbor Media for providing the closed-circuit television coverage for this meeting. The meeting also is being recorded for later broadcast on local cable. Please note, there is no smoking allowed anywhere in the building. Also, take a moment, please, to locate the emergency exit nearest you. Now, in the unlikely event of any emergency, please remain in your seats and then follow the directions of our uniformed emergency personnel who are stationed throughout the building. I'd invite you at this moment to take time to turn off all your cell phones. And please refrain from using the phones and texting absent an emergency or other compelling reason to do so. The town election, of course, will be held on Tuesday, November the 8th. The details of the election are set forth in the warrant booklet at page 13 and can also be found readily on the town website. Of course, some of the things we're being asked to consider tonight would also be relevant to the election on November the 8th. I call your attention also to the Talent Bank application form. That form is set forth at the end of the warrant booklet at page 14. Members of the Select Board and the moderator always welcome volunteers to serve on the many appointed town committees and boards. If you're interested, simply fill out a Talent Bank application and return it to the Select Board office. You can also fill it out online very readily. The form is found on the town's website and be completed electronically. The Select Board members and the moderator always are looking for volunteers. We've been blessed, really, with an extraordinary turnout year after year of volunteers. Typically, of course, the interviews take place after the spring annual town meeting in May and June, but there are opportunities to make appointments throughout the year as vacancies do arise from time to time. Let me introduce those who are up here on the platform. I'll start to my left, Tom Mayo, our town administrator. Next to him, Michelle Monsegur, an assistant town administrator. To my immediate left, your right, Carol Falvey, our town clerk. Liz Klein, select board member. Joe Fisher, select board member. And Bill Ramsey, select board member. I invite your attention now to pages 2 and 3 of the warrant booklet. There I have set forth some town bylaws and other procedures that we follow in the conduct of Hingham Town Meeting. So let's just take a moment to look at it. So first, just to make sure we're all on the same page, because sometimes people confuse articles and motions. So what's an article? An article is a question. And remember what you are. You are the legislature. You are the legislature, just as, Jones serves in the House of Representatives and Congressman Lynch serves in the Congress of the United States. They are serving in legislative bodies. In the town of Hingham, the meeting is the legislative body for the town. So an article which gets put in the warrant, which is a warning about the fact that there will be a meeting coming up, an article is a question that you all are responsible to answer. A motion, as the name would indicate, is a proposed answer. It's the action, it's the motion that would propose to answer the question. Motions must be within the scope of the article. So if the article says, would you like to build a new junior high school, it can't be answered, we'd actually like to build a golf course. That would not be within the scope of the question. Also, it would be unfair to the people who are convening as the meeting to kind of get double-crossed. All motions must be seconded. The advisory committee is to my left. That's 15 members of the community who serve as an advisory and finance committee. They work diligently throughout the year to scrub what comes before the meeting and to make recommendations. When the advisory committee is recommending that affirmative action, an affirmative motion be made under an article, the advisory committee's motion is received as the main motion under the article. Now, when you look at your warrant tonight, you will see that those 3 questions that we all have to decide tonight, actually you have to decide them, those 3 questions all come with an affirmative motion of the advisory committee. So in each instance, that will be the motion that we will be considering. Limits on speaking. Hingham has long had time limits on speaking, and the time limits are as follows. 6 minutes if you are recognized to speak by the moderator. You will be afforded 6 minutes the first time you speak on a given article, and if you are recognized a second time, you would have a maximum of 3 minutes the second time. We have been very good about not doing the following: indulging in personalities. No speaker is to indulge in personalities, to refer to other people by name, or to say, I want to differ with what that person just said. You confine your remarks to the matter before the meeting. As I said earlier, people who are not registered voters of the town may be admitted to the meeting as guests. A guest of the meeting may be granted permission to address the meeting by majority vote. A couple of parliamentary things that I think are critical for everyone to understand and kind of internalize at the bottom of page 2. The motion for the previous question, not something that is intuitive. The motion for the previous question is intended to end debate. Go back to the answering the question and have an immediate vote on the pending question, the question being the article. The motion for the previous question is not debatable and requires a majority vote for adoption. The moderator will decline to accept a motion for the previous question if other voters are seeking recognition and if both sides, assuming that there are two, have not yet had a fair opportunity to be heard. The moderator will accept the motion for the previous question if it appears to the moderator that both sides have been heard and the discussion is becoming repetitious. Voting procedures, pretty important. All votes are taken here in Hingham in the first instance by voice vote. So when we come to that, I will say, all those in favor of the recommended motion under Article X, please say aye, and we'll have the ayes and then the nays. So we do a voice vote. If the moderator or an assistant moderator in one of the auxiliary venues, if the moderator is in doubt as to the results, or if 7 voters shall rise and express doubt as to the result declared by the moderator, then we will have a counted vote. We do counted votes as standing votes, except that a ballot vote will be taken in lieu of a standing vote if either A, the advisory committee, or B, 50 voters promptly call for a ballot vote. Now, a ballot vote takes considerable time, and our long practice in Hingham has been not to request a ballot vote in the absence of compelling reasons to do so. A couple of other notes. This is a special town meeting, consequently no money may be appropriated for any purpose if the advisory committee recommends against the appropriation unless there is a 2/3 vote of the meeting. There are 3 articles, the 3 questions that are before this body tonight, each of which, and I'll get to it at the appropriate time, but little preview, each of them requires for adoption a 2/3 majority. And again, the vote will be taken at the appropriate time as a voice vote, and then only as a counted vote if the procedure that I just adverted to becomes relevant. Motions for reconsideration. No vote may be reconsidered except after a 2/3 vote on a motion to reconsider such vote. I'll finish it, and then if it's not self-evident, explain it. A vote may not be reconsidered a second time or after a motion to reconsider it has failed to pass. So what's a motion for reconsideration? Well, that one does seem self-evident by its name. We take a vote, for example, and the vote has been called. And then someone says, I'd like to reconsider. I am filing or making a motion for reconsideration. It's exactly what the name implies, that you want to have effectively a do-over. If you wish to reconsider the vote on an article, then you will vote in favor of the motion for reconsideration. If you do not wish to have the matter reconsidered, of course, you'll vote against the motion for reconsideration. As it says in the bullet there, no vote may be reconsidered except after a 2/3 vote to do so. So it requires a 2/3 vote to reconsider a vote that has already been made. So that may come to pass. When we finish tonight, and I'm confident we will finish tonight and at a reasonable hour, when the warrant is completed, a motion to dissolve the meeting will be invited. We have more than surpassed our quorum. I remind you that if you wish to speak, please rise, seek the attention of the moderator here, or of Karen in the auditorium, or Jen in the plaza there under the tent, and you will be recognized. And what happens on the auxiliary rooms is Karen or Jen, as the case may be, would say, Mr. Moderator, there is a voter in, for example, the auditorium who wishes to be recognized, and I will make note of that in my notebook here and recognize that voter when it's appropriate to do so. That,
Mr. Moderator,
yes?
I'd just like to invite the folks that are in the back of the auditorium, just let them know there are plenty of seats up in the front.
Excellent. Just before we begin, and this will just take a moment, I'd like to just recognize and invite you to kind of embrace what it is we're about to do. And it's really extraordinary that, you know, for whatever it is, since 1635 or so, that the town of Hingham has governed itself in the way in which we are governing ourselves tonight. That the town has long maintained this tradition of having the people serve as the town's legislature, of having the people take responsibility for deciding issues of critical importance to the community, and we do so through open town meeting. A lot of towns our size have long ago abandoned open town meeting in favor of representative town meeting, where we would be electing town meeting members and then hoping that they serve well and serve in the common good, and then your only recourse would be to vote differently at some election. Here you have the opportunity as a registered voter to take part in the legislative process that is open town meeting, and to do so, as we say, with voice and vote. I would submit that in many ways the essential character of the town of Hingham is far more than it's lovely and it has good schools and close to the water and all those things that are true, but that the essential character of Hingham is founded on what we're doing tonight. Self-governance, citizen engagement, and voluntarism. All of these things flow from our continuing commitment to this institution that is town meeting. Self-governance is a profound privilege, and it's a civic responsibility. So I thank you for being present tonight. I invite you, with only 3 items on the warrant, to not miss any one of them, to stay and help decide each of these important matters. So, without further ado, we come to Article 1. So Article 1 is set forth at page 4, and remember, it's a question. And it asks the following. It asks you all, will the town raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to be expended under the direction of the 2017 School Building Committee for professional fees constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new elementary school to replace the existing William L. Foster Elementary School located at 55 Downer Avenue, Lot 1 on Assessor Map 38, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children of at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a school construction grant from the Massachusetts School Building Committee, the MSBA. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement, discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA. And any project cost the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Any grant that the town may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1, the MSBA approved percentage of approximately 40 and 54/100%, 40.54% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA, or act on anything related thereto. Now, this question was inserted in the warrant at the request of the 2017 Building Committee. And the recommended motion is set forth at page 8. And I'll just explain, so this is the recommended motion. I won't read it yet, but this comes to you with the approval of the Advisory Committee and the Select Board. Both those bodies voted unanimously to support the recommended motion under Article 1. When we get to it, it will require for approval a 2/3 affirmative vote of the meeting, and then ultimately an affirmative majority vote, a simple majority vote, at the election to be held on November the 8th. So I have read the article, I've read the question, and I now ask, is there discussion? I recognize George Danis on behalf of the Advisory Committee. George will come forth. He will get his 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. My name is George Danis, and I live at 14 Coolidge Avenue. I'm the chair of the Advisory Committee, and I would like to speak to you about the articles before you this evening. Collectively, these articles represent a significant capital investment in both the current and future needs of our town, and I would like to take a minute to describe the process the Advisory Committee went through to evaluate and ultimately vote in favor of these articles. First, both projects have a long history with the Advisory Committee. We have had one or both of these projects on our agenda almost 60 times. Over the course of these many meetings, we have developed an understanding of the size, the scope, the need, and the cost of these projects. Once plans for this special town meeting were announced earlier this year, the Advisory Committee began the work of reviewing the proposed articles. To facilitate this process, Advisory Committee members were assigned to serve as liaisons to the building committees for each project. The liaison's role is to gain an understanding of the project, to look for areas of concern or other potential issues, and to communicate that information back to the full committee. They also coordinate all activity between the building committee and the Advisory Committee, and they are responsible for drafting both the comment and recommended motion on the article. As part of our review, we have held 8 meetings since July, 4 of which were with the respective building committees. The remaining meetings consisted of discussions on the project, including the financing options and the preparation of the comment and recommended motion for this warrant. Additionally, members regularly attended meetings of the Planning Board and Conservation Committee to track these projects through the permitting process. One area of concern was cost. So we met with town officials to discuss and review the financing options and cost implications. This included a discussion about the assumptions used by our outside consultants in developing their financial models. Within this context, it is important to note that our AAA rating will ensure us not only access to the capital markets, but also the best available borrowing rates and terms. Based on this review, we were able to estimate the tax impact of a favorable vote on a property assessed at the 50th percentile and included that information in our comments. Slide 1 shows that information for Article 1, along with additional estimates for properties at the 25th and 75th percentile. And here on slide 2 is the same information for Article 2. Oh. Okay. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. This is slide 1, and it shows the information for Article 1 for a property that is assessed at either the 25th, the 50th, or the 75th percentile. The next slide is slide 2, which presents the same information for Article 2. Now, the committee also recognized that this cost might be a hardship for some of our citizens, and that the use of a stabilization fund could help to mitigate the overall tax impact by providing an alternative source of funding to the tax levy. The use of unassigned fund balance to create this type of fund is consistent with plans voiced by town officials in the past and with our financial policy. Slide 3 shows the cumulative impact of this option over a 4-year period. Additionally, the committee noted that the town offers 12 tax relief programs to help citizens offset some of their tax liabilities. To summarize, the advisory committee has held numerous meetings to discuss the proposed new elementary school and the proposed public safety facility. We have met with the respective building committees and proponents to discuss the need, the size, the scope, and the cost of each project. We reviewed and discussed the financing options and the impacts to taxpayers with town officials. Based on our review and our analysis, the advisory committee voted unanimously in support of each of the 3 articles. Thank you.
I recognize Mr. Ramsey from the Select Board on Article 1. Bill Ramsey, Chair, the Select Board.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Bill Ramsey, 55 North Street. The articles before you tonight ask you to invest in our future, invest in our families, and invest in our facilities. Several weeks ago, I was in my 4th graders class at Foster for curriculum night. It was the same classroom that I was in as a 4th grader. And as I looked around the room, it quickly dawned on me that the classroom had not changed 1 inch in almost 40 years. Since 1951, the Foster School has served the residents of North Hingham with distinction. Tonight, we thank it for its service, we send it to its retirement, and we begin anew. This evening's vote is the culmination of 5 years worth of work, 20 select board meetings, 23 school committee meetings, 25 advisory committee meetings, 70 building committee meetings, 11 site visits, 3 successful town meeting votes, a unanimous vote by your select board, a unanimous vote by your advisory committee, all take us to this moment. And during this process, we've learned that there are certainly challenges associated with building on the site. And those challenges have been addressed by the building committee during the permitting process. But those challenges pale in comparison to trying to educate children in the wake of a leaking roof, exposed hot water pipes, and outdated classrooms. Now, the cost of this project is certainly not insignificant. But the strength of the town's AAA bond rating will allow us to borrow at the best rates available. And the use of our fund balance, which we have been saving for years, will allow us to mitigate the tax impacts associated with constructing this building. And for those who need help, the town offers financial assistance programs for our seniors, for those with disabilities, for our veterans, and for many other residents. Now, there are those who might say that a school should not be judged by how it looks, but solely by the academic results that it produces. But in the case of the William L. Foster School, it is past time that the quality of the material that makes up the outside of the building matches the high quality of the occupants that are inside the building. Vote yes to $25 million in state funding. Vote yes to close this chapter in our town's history. Vote yes to build this school.
Thank you. I next recognize, as is our tradition, the liaison from the advisory committee who studied this question, and that is advisory committee member Al McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, my name is Alan McDonald. I live at 14 Partridge Drive here in Hingham, and I am here to speak for the advisory committee specifically on Article 1. Whereas our chairman, Mr. Danis, spoke to all three broadly, I do want to just quickly sort of talk in the context specifically of question 1, or Article 1. One quick point on the advisory committee. Our primary role, really, for the 15 of us serving on the advisory committee here is to really serve as a year-round surrogate for town meeting, to be able to have the opportunity to really dive into issues across the town and have impartial deliberations, talking with stakeholders all across the town, pro and con, to have gained a deep understanding of all of the financial and policy issues that are developing across the town. And ultimately, and that includes every line item in the budget and also every article that comes before town meeting, and ultimately voting on a recommendation to town meeting as to what we think is the best interest of the town moving forward in light of not only the individual proposal, but all of the issues in front of the town. So in terms of Foster specifically, the issue to address Foster being beyond its useful life has been at the forefront of all the discussions in my 3 years on the advisory committee. And as has been mentioned several times, we've had countless hours speaking with the building committees, all the relevant, the school department, and hours and hours of presentations, questions, answers, further review, deliberation on consideration of not just the project, but the process itself. And in the end, all 15 advisory committee members were convinced that this is a positive measure for the future of the town, and we unanimously recommend approval of the article. The full discussion and analysis of this recommendation is in the Warrant booklet, which I hope you all had a chance to read. But just in case there are any uncertainty, I wanted to quickly highlight a few of the points that we highlighted in our summary, in our recommendation. And first is that the Foster School was first identified as being beyond its useful life and need of replacement in the 2005 School Facility Study Committee. So this is a challenge that we have, that a solution absolutely has to be found, and quickly, as to how we appropriately provide facilities for the education of the Foster District students. The $113 million price tag is obviously something that we have to acknowledge. Again, in our role as your surrogates, in many different contexts and forums, we have asked, why does it cost that much? And $113 million, even with the state grant of 25, still represents a need to borrow about $88 million on behalf of the town. And in the course of all the hours and meetings of communication and questioning and deliberation with all of the relevant stakeholders, we are confident that the school building and the department really pursued all avenues to explore how to minimize expenses, how to adapt plans, identified alternatives, and in the end, these alternatives were either included in the proposal before us tonight or rejected for very sound, informed, and rational reasons that we can get into with questioning, probably. The advisory committee has full faith that the article before us tonight represents the most effective solution to the challenge of providing appropriate facilities for the education of the Foster School District. It balances the educational priorities, the social development and community needs with the realities of our population, our geography, and today's construction costs. I also want to highlight that it was our conclusion that a no vote would be very detrimental to the town educational plan. It would add years of delay to an already postponed and overdue solution, and would damage the inherently valuable culture within our community of prioritizing education that Hingham has fostered over many years. Also, it is not reasonable to anticipate that a future building project would be any less expensive than the project that we look at tonight. So in conclusion, we realize many of you will want to ask your own questions, but we do want you to know that in our role as your surrogates, we have taken this role very seriously and has led up to the decision that the 15-member advisory committee unanimously recommends that the voters of town meeting vote yes on Article 1 to build a new elementary school. Thank you.
Next, I recognize Ray Estes, who is the chair of the building committee that has been studying Foster School. Mr. Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. Ray Estes, 92 Fort Hill Street, for the School Building Committee. Our committee is grateful that you have joined us tonight as we seek to make a significant investment in our town. The project we asked you to support and fund tonight is a new elementary school to replace the existing Foster Elementary in Crow Point. The three-story, 126,000 square foot building will accommodate both the Foster students when it opens in September 2024 and the anticipated enrollment growth to come in the ensuing years. But this is more than just a school building. While the education of our children will be its primary purpose, this new elementary school will create opportunities for the larger community to gather and appreciate what makes our town special, each other. This project has been a long time coming. For more than a decade, it took a backseat to other pressing capital needs. Following your mandate, we assembled a talented and dedicated team of volunteers and professionals that has worked for over 5 years to get to this point, many of them sitting right over there. Missing from that list are 2 key and long-term members of the school administration who have retired in recent years but contributed greatly to this effort. I want to acknowledge Dorothy Gallo and John Ferris. It has been a pleasure and sincere honor to have worked alongside each of them. The results of our work will solve the long-standing space and mechanical system deficiencies that have been well socialized over many years and have negatively impacted curriculum delivery and the overall educational experience of thousands of current and former Foster Elementary students. The overall design of the new school began with the development of an educational plan. A comprehensive educational plan that details methodology for curriculum delivery. The resulting design is driven and informed by that plan, as well as space requirements and guidelines imposed by the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The new school has many benefits that will serve both the Foster student body and broader community. The building will provide space to expand our integrated pre-kindergarten program and our popular Kids in Action program. The design is smart educationally, grouping each set of grade-level classrooms in a neighborhood with common areas to promote collaborative learning and provide right-sized spaces for physical education, lunch, music instruction, arts and STEM exploration, all-school assemblies, and potentially new special education programming we have not been previously able to offer. The design is also smart environmentally, reducing operational, maintenance, and utility costs over time, providing a well-insulated exterior skin and abundant natural light, and helping to achieve the net zero goals of reducing fossil fuel use and carbon emissions. Many spaces are also designed for maximum functionality. The gym and the cafetorium can accommodate youth sports and other community groups after hours and on weekends. The multipurpose room will house the field science program and Kids in Action and includes makerspace and other features to enable both utility and flexibility for curricular and community activities. Some have questioned the cost of this project and the decision to move forward now. Why not wait? It's true, as my friend Billy just told you, the MSBA approved budget for this project is significant. But Hingham is not alone as it faces rising construction and labor costs, supply chain delays, and global inflation. These are conditions and circumstances impacting the rest of the Commonwealth as well as the nation and beyond. As a committee, we have made and will continue to make every effort to control and reduce costs throughout the course of this project. The reality is that construction costs will not decrease over time. They will only rise and make a future project more expensive. We have already waited too long as inadequate spaces and aging mechanical systems, which continue to fail with greater frequency, disrupt the learning environment our children require. And if we forgo this opportunity to move forward in partnership with the MSBA now, we will sacrifice a $25 million contribution to the bottom line that may not be offered again. So if not now, when? There will never be a more advantageous time. Our town leaders have devised a plan to finance Hingham's share of this endeavor that is a balanced and universally endorsed approach. As a taxpayer with children well beyond elementary school, I understand the burden this project represents, but I also recognize the responsibility that I have to bear to contribute to this town's future, as those who came before did for my own children. When we invest in ourselves, we can't go wrong. The children of today and tomorrow will reap the benefits of this new school, and as a result, make for a stronger and more prosperous Hingham for all of us. Please join me in supporting Article 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there other voters who wish to be recognized either to speak in favor of or have a contrary opinion on Article 1? If not, we come to vote. As I mentioned to you, Article 1 requires for adoption a 2/3 majority. We will call it by voice. We have voters in the auditorium. We have voters in the cafeteria, and we have voters under the big top. Now, I do ask that as we come to vote and as we complete the vote, that everyone recognizes that there are probably going to be some people who are not going to love the outcome one way or the other. And we also have two other important things to decide tonight. So all those in favor of the recommended motion of the Advisory Committee and the Select Board, which I will now read. Just give me a moment. So I'll read it so you know what you're voting on. It is recommended that the town appropriate the sum of $113,335,749, which is $113,335,749, to be expended under the direction of the 2017 School Building Committee for professional fees, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new elementary school, to replace the William L. Foster existing elementary school located at 55 Downer Avenue, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children of at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a school construction grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the MSBA. To meet this, which I'll call the authority, to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, and Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 70B, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. The town acknowledges that the authority's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the authority, and any project cost the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the authority shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Any grant that the town may receive from the authority for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1, the authority-approved percentage of approximately 40.54% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the authority, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the authority. And provided that no construction contract shall be awarded for the new school until a project funding agreement has been executed between the authority and the town. The town. And further provided that the appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitations on taxes imposed by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Prop 2.5, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to such vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the town and the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Now, that does not require a second because it came with the full recommendation of the advisory committee and the select board. So all those in favor of the recommended motion under Article 1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. All right. Much like the chairman of the Federal Reserve, whose job is to take the punch bowl away just when the party gets going. Yes, sir. You may. Is there a second? Oh, I'm sorry. It's the auditorium, thank you. What was the vote Karen, the vote in the auditorium was what?
In the affirmative with 1 nay.
Okay. In the cafeteria, Mr. Khan? Thank you.
Yes.
It was affirmative. And Ms. Gay-Smith?
Mr. Moderator, the vote in the big top was in the affirmative with 1 nay.
All right. So the more than 2/3 having voted in favor of the recommended motion under Article 1, the motion is adopted. Mr. O'Reilly has now made a timely motion for reconsideration. Is there a second on Mr. O'Reilly's vote to reconsider the vote? Motion for reconsider, it's seconded. So what is now before you is a motion for reconsideration. As I explained, if you want the previous vote that was just taken on Article 1 to stand, you will oppose Mr. O'Reilly's motion that it be reconsidered. If you would like to, again, go back to Article 1, you will vote in favor of Mr. O'Reilly's motion for reconsideration. Mr. O'Reilly's motion for reconsideration requires, for its adoption, a 2/3 affirmative vote of this body as we are dispersed in these 4 locations. All those in favor of Mr. O'Reilly's motion to reconsider the vote just taken under Article 1, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. No! And those clearly have it. The motion for reconsideration is lost, which means I don't need them. They don't have enough voters to make a difference, but I'll ask. Karen, in the auditorium, the vote was what?
The motion lost in the auditorium.
In the cafeteria, Russell?
Yes, it was voted down, nay.
And under the big top, Jen?
The motion lost in the 10.
Okay. We now come to Article 2. Article 2 asks another question. And this question under Article 2 asks the following question. It's a lot shorter. The question is, will the town raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to be expended under the direction of the Select Board to do what? to pay for professional fees constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new public safety facility located at 335 Lincoln Street, Hingham, Massachusetts, or to act on anything related thereto. The recommended motion under Article 2, again, the action that is being proposed, is set forth at page 11. And this, too, requires for adoption your two-thirds vote, and you will see that the Planning Board voted unanimously in support of the project, and the recommended motion set forth at page 11 comes to you with the unanimous recommendation of both the Advisory Committee and the Select Board. And I invite discussion on the question under Article 2 and recognize the liaison for the Advisory Committee on this matter, Nancy McDonald. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Nancy McDonald, 190 High Street, Vice Chair of the Advisory Committee. The article before you asks to borrow money for the construction of a new Hingham public safety facility on 3A. Hingham is very methodical in how we approach large capital expenditures, and this article is the culmination of 9 years of work by various building committees and departments made up of volunteer citizens, town employees, and both elected and appointed officials. 4 town meetings have voted to approve the preceding phases, including the purchase of the property, the design work, and the development of construction documents. This is the final step of the process. You're finally here. The proposed building addresses space issues in key town departments and buildings, including the North Fire Station, the Police Department, the Senior Center, and Town Hall. The current facilities have served us well for decades, but no longer meet the requirements of modern firefighting, policing, or our growing senior population. The North Fire Station was built 81 years ago in 1941 when the fire department did not include ambulance services. The current police department was added space onto the old high school in 1967 as a science wing and was converted to the police headquarters in 1998. In 2011, the police department lost 1,500 square feet when Shrek, the regional dispatch center, was moved into Town Hall. The needs of the fire station are clear. The current bays are sized for equipment from the 1940s. The working spaces provide no separate areas for decontamination of equipment, which is a significant health risk for firefighters. The living spaces for the crews who work 48 to 72-hour shifts have no separate living facilities for individuals, much less privacy between male and female firefighters. The police department building is equally inadequate for the current needs of the department. It lacks appropriate working and training areas, storage and parking, as well as locker and bathroom space to support both male and female officers. Modern policing includes social workers and mental health clinicians, and Hingham's police force includes these professionals. However, our current facility lacks appropriate private areas for them to meet with citizens in need. Prior to the purchasing of the land on 3A, the Fire Station Building Committee determined that the current North Station site is not viable for a modern fire station and that renovation is neither practical nor prudent. The proposed facility allows the town to re-envision the solution to our space problems by combining the police department and the North Fire Station operations into one building. This provides cost and operational efficiencies, as well as opens up much-needed space in Town Hall for expanding the senior center. The current building committee has worked with the architects, the police and fire departments, the town engineer, the Hingham Municipal Light Plant, Hingham Net Zero, the town administration, and the select board to design an appropriate building that meets the programmatic needs of the departments, as well as the concerns and priorities of the town. The final design is a building that is cost-effective, appropriate for Hingham in both size and design, and utilizes electric systems for 97% of the energy needs. The committee's meetings were all open public meetings and were well attended by our citizens. The committee held multiple open house events over the past 2 years where citizens could tour the existing facilities and view and discuss the proposed new facility with the department chiefs and the building committee. In September, your planning board voted unanimously in support of this project. Town meeting's approval of this article will move the project to the next phase, construction. If this article is approved, the committee anticipates putting the property out to bid in the next month, construction to begin in the spring, and the occupancy in late 2024. The advisory committee recommends that the town borrow $46,700,000 for construction of the new facility, including professional fees, equipment, and furnishing. In addition to town meeting's approval, by law, an additional ballot vote is required on Tuesday, November 8th at the state election. With approval today and on November 8th, the town can begin construction of this new facility. The Select Board and the Advisory Committee all voted unanimously in favor of this article, and we hope that you will too. Thank you.
On behalf of the Select Board, I recognize Liz Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Klein, 12 Peter Hobart Drive, member of the Select Board. You've heard from Advisory Committee why a new public safety facility is needed and the process taken to get here. The Building Committee has worked diligently with experts, the chiefs, town employees and volunteers, and residents to design the most optimized public safety facility for current and future needs. When thinking about this vote, I went back to a video I created before the town meeting of May 2021. In it, I explained why I was supporting the public safety facility design. In simplest terms, there were 3 reasons. 1, public safety professionals need a safe place to work so they can better serve our community. 2, the public safety facility needs to move forward for the senior center project to move forward. Our seniors deserve a better place and programming to meet their needs. The police vacating their current space will allow the town to evaluate that space and determine if expansion at Town Hall is a viable option. And 3, the project had a phased approach with many opportunities for community input. Since then, I've met with the chiefs, firefighters, and police officers to better understand the need. When the North Fire Station was built, women were not firefighters. The living quarters are cramped and awkward, to say the least, with 2 firefighters sharing a sleeping space and bathroom. When North Station was built, the science did not yet exist, telling us carcinogens are deadly and should be contained and disposed of properly, separate from living, eating, and sleeping quarters. Sprinkler systems were not part of the building code, and Hingham did not offer ambulance services. Now our fire department responds to over 3,500 medical emergencies a year. The police department never fit in the space in Town Hall. Coupled with the South Shore Regional Emergency Communications Center moving in and the growing requirements, and you quickly see that the current space is inadequate. Since 1980, the number of police officers has decreased. The number of calls has more than doubled, and the work has gotten increasingly more complicated. We have a civil rights officer. His duties include safeguarding the rights of all individuals, irrespective of their race, religion, ethnicity, handicap, sexual orientation, and gender. Hingham Police Department was one of the first departments in the state to appoint a special needs officer who has assisted in dozens of calls to assist those with disabilities. The Commission on Disabilities and leaders of the Hingham Police Department and Fire Department recently worked to enhance the Exceptional Needs Registry. This volunteer and confidential registry allows first responders to have a better working knowledge of a person's unique mental and physical needs prior to arriving on the scene. Hingham has a community crisis response clinician on staff to help residents with mental health and drug dependency needs, as well as their family members. Hingham Police Department just received a grant for body-worn cameras. Policing has changed and continues to evolve. We as a town are asking them to operate at the highest standard, including achieving state accreditation, so that we are not only trying to enforce the laws consistently and respectfully, but also that these standards are reviewable and measurable. Accreditation is not feasible within our current police station. The new design offers the space needed to accommodate this collective mission. Modern police and fire missions require modern facilities. Hingham is competing with other municipalities for the best public safety professionals. Recruiting and retention is a challenge given our current facilities. When I took this position on the select board, I gave up the luxury of thinking Hingham is safe by accident. One of the first things I did was visit the police at each of the 3 shift changes, 8 a.m., 4 p.m., and midnight. I listened to the roll call and what the officers would be dealing with during the shift, plus the unexpected. There were 466 domestic violence calls last year, more than 1 a day in Hingham. There were 27 overdose calls. Every 2 weeks, someone is nearly losing their life until a first responder arrives and Narcan is administered. And as I mentioned, the senior center is inadequate. We are anxious to start the design and construction of a new senior center. Feasibility and conceptual design is slated to start November 9th to determine the best location and configuration. But it's important to remember that our growing senior population is not only cared for at the senior center. Our public safety professionals responded to 126 calls from senior citizens last year and perform at least 5 wellness checks for seniors per week. The Public Safety Building Committee has done a fabulous job balancing the needs of our citizens as well as the fire and police departments to enable them to provide the highest level of service, coupled with our net zero goals, budget, and timeline to come up with the design before you. The Select Board and Advisory Committee unanimously voted in support of this project because of the obvious need, urgency, and tax impact. If delayed, this project will only get more expensive. The average annual tax increase for the median assessed household is $236. We have mitigated the tax impact to the best of our ability and have expanded tax relief programs to the fullest extent. Thank you.
I recognize Donna Smallwood on behalf of the Public Safety Building Committee. Mrs. Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Donna Smallwood, 32 Brewster Road, for the Public Safety Building Committee. Good evening. What we have now is an 81-year-old fire station and a police department shoehorned into what was a school, both woefully undersized, poorly configured, and lacking the features conducive to modern policing and firefighting. What we propose is moving North Fire Substation and police operations into one optimally located public safety complex. There, we can accomplish operational efficiencies and cost savings by combining 2 of the town's services that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in one building. As we began our work, we hired Castle Booz Associates, an architectural firm with deep experience designing public safety facilities in Massachusetts, and Hill International as our owner's project manager. We visited other towns that had already built facilities to figure out what had worked, and in some cases, what hadn't. We worked intensively at over 60 meetings to understand the chief's operational needs, because those needs are what drove the building design. Then we designed, we refined design, we redesigned, we re-refined, and over the course, we reduced the size of the building 13% from the original proposal. We're proud to bring you the results. Let's take a look. Here we're standing on Essington Drive, commuter belt parking with to our backs, and Fresh Market is to our right. We're looking at the public safety facility's front door, its main entrance. In general, police operations are to the left, and fire operations are to the right. How is this building better, both for our staff and our community? Let me count the ways. Cost savings. We need one building lobby and one set of building support services for both departments. Shared training and exercise space, helping maintain our public safety team's health and enhance their skills. Bunk rooms with appropriate privacy for male and female firefighters who both work and live in this building. Sized and configured spaces conducive to effective public safety work, like meeting rooms where our officers can conduct confidential police work with victims and families in private. We were a community of 8,000 people in 1940 when we built the North Fire Station. At 24,000 today, we are 3 times our 1940s selves. Our proposed facility will help meet current needs and those of the next 50 years, the expected life of the building. And we bring you a green building, helping to meet our town's environmental goals. We worked in concert with both the Planning Board and Hingham Net Zero on this facet. This is a 97% electric building with only the apparatus bay heated with gas because the technology isn't quite there yet for this application. Its flat roof is built solar ready, making later installation of solar panels easier. It comes delivered with 8 electric vehicle charging stations for both our public safety team and the public's use, with the infrastructure in place throughout the site for future charging stations anywhere we need them. Throughout, the specifications are for energy-efficient heating and roofing systems, insulation exceeding energy codes, and long-lasting building materials, all contributing to energy efficiency. Now take a walk with me around the block, and we're standing on Route 3A. From this view, the building appears to be 2 stories because the site slopes up so dramatically. On this side, it's dominated by the 5 fire apparatus bays that were absolutely critical to Chief Murphy and his team, because they mean that all 4 trucks and ambulances assigned to this substation have immediate access to Route 3A when an emergency occurs. Our budget request tonight of $46.7 million will both construct and outfit this building. On the operational side, only 1 additional hire is expected, and that's a custodian to help us maintain our investment in the building. In terms of schedule, we've completed all the early design work and are now more than 70% done with pre-construction bid documents. With your support tonight
1 minute.
and at next week's ballot, this project is ready to bid in the new year with occupancy anticipated for fall of 2024. In conclusion, 4 previous town meetings have supported this project with fundings for its design. A yes tonight gets this project built. Please join the Select Board, the Advisory Committee, and our Building Committee in voting yes on Article 2. Thank you.
I recognize Judy Sneath on behalf of the Planning Board. Ms. Sneath.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Judy Sneath, 89 North Street. I am the current chair of the Planning Board. When I was first elected to the board in 2006, I didn't know anything really about stormwater management or waivers or traffic counts. I was really a novice, but I was committed to approaching every project before the board with curiosity and a desire to learn, to dig into the details, to adhere to the zoning bylaw, and to listen very carefully. What I've learned in the years since is that in the most fruitful planning board work, proponents of the projects, their engineering team, and the town's peer review engineers, all experts or experienced in significant ways, do a lot of listening, considering, and responding. Between them, the town's Public Safety Building Committee members and their project team likely have well over 100 years of experience in the public realm. Yet, their ability to listen, consider, and respond is what we saw in our work with them on this project. In January, well before submitting an application to the board, the building committee invited 2 of us to join a working group to think about the most appropriate design for the building itself. As a result, the architects modified the preliminary design to be more in keeping with the shipyard. Through the summer months, the full planning board conducted a comprehensive site plan review to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw and a development that is harmonious with surrounding areas. After 3 public hearings and review of the applicant's extensive exchanges with our land use staff and peer review engineers, the planning board voted unanimously to grant site plan approval and a special permit A3 parking determination for the proposed public safety facility. We are confident that the facility will work as intended on this site. Our review went into more detail than I would dare share with you tonight, but I will point to a few findings that support this decision. Most importantly, the site provides for safe pedestrian and vehicular access. Emergency vehicles can safely exit the site directly onto 3A using a dedicated driveway under preemptive traffic control, and the traffic flow in and around the site will not result in a significant impact on motorists. The project takes into account the flow of commuter traffic entering and exiting the MBTA ferry terminal and the safety of the residents in nearby buildings. We also found that the building design is a good fit for the site. The massing and exterior facade reflect the industrial and nautical history of the Hingham shipyard. The street trees that are there will be preserved, and additional plantings will soften the hardscape and add to the natural environment. There's adequate parking on the site, including dedicated spaces for electric vehicles. And finally, we found that the proposed system for stormwater management complies with applicable state and local standards. Currently, a significant amount of stormwater runoff is not captured on the site and flows directly onto Essington Drive untreated. And this project improves the treatment of stormwater. Often in our review of projects, the board has to make hard decisions in order to balance a property owner's rights with the public good, so that one is not a detriment to the other. In this project, the public good is entirely aligned with the property owner's rights. The benefit of the town's investment in public safety infrastructure goes far beyond the site itself to meeting the needs of all Hingham residents now and for generations to come. Thank you.
Are there other voters who wish to speak to the recommended motion under? Yes, sir, come forward. Please identify yourself by name and street address when you get to the microphone closest.
Peter Goldstein, 44 Bel Air Road. I realize now that some of this, given the other speakers, might be repetitive, but I'll try to go quickly and repetitive. I certainly supported the
Mr. Moderator, we are unable to hear the speaker in the auditorium.
Why don't you come to this microphone just to see if that is more conducive. He's moving smartly toward the main mic, Karen. So.
Thank you.
How's that? Any better?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. I think this is necessary infrastructure for our town. We expect our children to have the best possible education, and that requires a facility that enables teachers to do their best job to that end. And likewise, a safe and secure town also makes Hingham a more desirable place to live. And even if you've never benefited from these services, the facility upgrades will certainly benefit you directly. As the town becomes more desirable, everyone benefits from increased property values. The longer we wait to address the needs of these two facilities, the cost will continue to rise significantly. And I truly believe the town can afford both of these facilities. These are necessary infrastructure costs that we must support. Given the growth of the town, these changes are most definitely needs and not wants. Those of you who have had an opportunity to tour the North Street Fire Station and the current police station have seen firsthand why these existing facilities cannot be redesigned, requiring a new safety facility. You no doubt have a clear understanding of how the current buildings impact the difficult work that these men and women do all day, every day on our behalf. The land purchase was the right move. It takes the related safety activities outside of the residential areas. To do their jobs effectively for us, our fire and police departments need this new combined facility that is appropriate for the work they do. And some of this is going to be a little repetitive, I apologize. The need for larger, more capable equipment and more people with more complex skills is necessary. The 2 garage bays barely accommodate the width and weight of our current fire vehicles. The trucks must be parked exactly in the right spot to allow the doors to open without hitting building infrastructure. They can't pull a stretcher in or out of an ambulance when they are parked in the building. There is no room to park the fire trucks outdoors because they extend over the sidewalks and interfere with passing traffic. The building was not designed at the time to accommodate ambulances for gear and the related EMS services. There is little to no storage. Equipment is stored in the garage in the narrow spaces that firefighters run through to get into their trucks to respond to emergencies, creating serious hazards. There is no room to store reserve equipment and vehicles in the building. If a truck doesn't start on their way to your house, they need backup. The workout area is located in a small hallway, which is adjacent to where contaminated gear is cleaned. When the building was designed 80 years ago, there were no female firefighters. The building really has no private dedicated facilities for female firefighters. There are 2 multi-bed co-ed bunk rooms with no privacy, and you have to walk through one bunk room to get to the other. There is 1 private bathroom in the North Street Fire Station for over 20 firefighters. And although a single shared bathroom is ADA compliant, the hallway to and from is not. And the bathroom is not heated. Nobody wants to sit in a cold toilet seat. A bedroom closet has to be used to store IT equipment. As you can imagine, firefighters face significant threats in their work. One of the deadliest threats is exposure to harmful carcinogenic materials, the things they can't even see. The hazard firefighters face today are exponentially greater. They know that. This is the job that they signed up for. But there is no reason why we can't provide them with the safest facility possible for the work that they do. We owe it to them. Their health and safety on the job is our responsibility. Their health and safety on the job is our responsibility. The carcinogenic materials these men and women come in contact with every day is significant. 80 years ago, our homes and our furniture were built primarily of wood. Passenger cars were pretty simple as well. Today, the synthetic materials for our homes, furniture, appliances, electronics, all look great and perform well, but when they burn, they are deadly. All of the retail and industry within our borders present the same dangers. The North Street Fire Station does not allow for proper decontamination and storage of anything exposed to hazardous materials. There is no proper ventilation to separate bad air from good. You have 1 minute. There is no way to keep hazardous contaminants outside of the living quarters. The only thing that separates these spaces are 80-year-old wooden doors, and I'll skip ahead in the interest of time. The police face essentially the same challenges. They occupy a space, has been pointed out, that was really not designed for the police station. There is not enough storage. This storage is done in hallways, in corridors, and in the staff entrance. There's only 1 conference space that is not big enough for the entire staff to meet, 1 shared conference room for all department services. Like firefighters, police officers work nonstop days with 1 emergency after the other: accidents, injuries, domestic violence, and death. There is no quiet, private place in either of these facilities for men and women to go to sort through all of that before they get in the car to return to their families at the end of the day.
Time has expired.
Thank you very much. Please support.
Is there any other voter who wishes to express an opinion or be heard on this? Yes, sir. He beat you to it. Make sure you identify yourself, and I'll call on you next, sir.
Nat Stillman, Linden Ponds Way. Although we're in South Hingham, I'm afraid almost every day we see the ambulance and the fire engine come. This project will make it easier, quicker, faster, safer for us to get the medical care, the ambulance service that we need. Vote yes. Thank you.
My name is Dick Pont. I live at 3 Hollyhock Lane. My wife and I have lived in Hingham for 45 years. I happen to be one of the 3,500 medical emergencies that our fire department responded to this year. And thanks to them, I will be celebrating my 88th birthday on December 4th. I am here to support the fire department and the police department. My children graduated from Hingham schools, went to Boston College and UVM. That education was the best. I know that it's going to be the best for all you younger people and your family. And I support the schools, and I support the fire department, and I support the police department. We need to vote yes on question 2. The only thing I'd like to add is I would like the building committee to really take a close look at the expansion of the senior center into the police department. The police department space, layout, conditions, heating, lighting, air conditioning, you name it, are terrible. It's not going to be any better for an expansion of the senior center. We need a new senior center. Our senior center is 5,000 square feet. 12 years ago, I was on a building committee, and my building committee recommended to our town officials that we build a brand new building of 20,000 square feet. That should have been done years ago. It hasn't been done. It should be done in the future. So future consideration, I'm with you. In the future, you be with me. Thank you.
It didn't seem appropriate to hold Mr. Pont to the scope of the article before the meeting. It would have been the least favorite moderator in the Commonwealth. Yes, ma'am. It's quite all right. Why don't you make it, if you can, up to this microphone. Take your time. You've already used a minute of it, but take your time. Oh, no, please. You get a full 6 minutes. You can pull that microphone right down like an ice cream cone, yeah?
Okay. I'm just looking at my notes.
Speak directly into it.
Stephanie Gertz, 16 Carlton Road. I'm the chair of the Commission on Disabilities, but I'm not speaking as the chair today. I'm speaking, though, as a member of the handicapped population in Hingham. More than most, I've needed the services of the first responders, and they've always shown me tremendous care. And a yes vote on the safety building is our way of showing them that we care about them too. Thank you.
Although a motion for the previous questions has been made, I'm not yet inclined to accept it. Mr. Healy, you're waving at me, just saying hello. You want to be recognized.
Full house. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Healy. I had some prepared remarks, but I sense that the audience is favorably inclined to support this. I sit on the Public Safety Building Committee, and I brought with me to that experience almost 60 years of living in this town. I served as a Hingham police officer for over a decade, planning board for almost 20 years, and had the honor and privilege of being a selectman. During that time, I saw the acute need of the departments. They were patient, they've remained professional, we've worked hard, we have a real sharp pen on this project. We're under the guidance of Robert Garrity, who's probably one of the best in the business, and we've come up with a great proposal for you. This is going to work. This is going to take care of our police and fire now and in the future, and I strongly urge and ask respectfully that you support us in this task. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Tully.
Melissa Tully, 29 Back River Road. I make a motion for the previous question.
I will accept, despite the feedback, the motion for the previous question. The motion is not by its nature debatable. All those in favor of the motion for the previous question, the purpose of which is to curtail debate and to move to action on the recommended motion under Article 2, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote. We come to vote on the recommended action under Article 2. I'm sorry? We haven't voted yet. It's unanimous. That's okay. Everybody's appropriately helping me with my multiple venues, but there are not enough voters in those other places to have modified the outcome. So the approval of this article requires 2/3, again, of town meeting, and then ultimately an affirmative majority vote at the election on the 8th of November. The advisory committee, as I mentioned earlier, and the select board have both voted unanimously in support of the article. I will now read it, strike the article. I will read the motion on page 11. It is recommended that the town appropriate an amount up to $46,700,000 to be expended by the select board for professional fees, constructing, equipping, I'll learn it by the end of the meeting, I guarantee it, equipping and furnishing a new public safety facility located at 335 Lincoln Street, Hingham. To meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. And further provided that the appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitation on taxes imposed by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, aka Prop 2.5. All those in favor of the recommended motion in any of the 4 venues that I have just read, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote in the gymnasium. How about in the auditorium, Karen?
It is a unanimous vote with 1 nay. Actually, that's not a unanimous vote, is it? We had 1 nay in the auditorium.
That's right. So the ayes have it.
The ayes have it.
In the cafeteria, Mr. Khan?
Yes, a unanimous vote except 1 nay.
Yes. And Jen, under the big top.
It was actually a unanimous vote in the big top.
A real unanimous vote. Don't leave, don't leave. Don't leave, because now we get to the funding of the 2 things that you're all so excited about. Just hang on one sec. Yes. Sure. A motion to reconsider the vote that was so enthusiastically adopted has now been made. I will not repeat what that means. If you would like to reconsider what you just voted for, please vote in favor of Donna's motion for reconsideration. All those in favor of reconsidering the vote on Article 2, please say aye. I sound like one little child wants to come back to it, but not a registered voter. All those opposed, please say no. No. The noes have it. The motion for reconsideration is lost. Last, and this will be brief, and the more time we take, the longer it's going to take. Article 3. Article 3 relates to a transfer of unassigned fund balances to the new stabilization fund, the purpose of which is to defray some of the costs of what you've just voted for. So, will the town transfer an amount of money from available reserves into a capital project cost and debt service stabilization fund established hereby under Massachusetts General Laws 40, Section 5 for the purpose of paying debt service payments for the excluded debt notes and/or bonds to be issued for the new public safety facility and/or the new Foster Elementary School in order to reduce the need to raise these funds through the annual tax rate, or for any other lawful purpose or act on anything related thereto. Now, I will make one correction. It's just a scrivener's error in the recommended motion. So if you turn to page 12, which is the recommended motion under Article 3, which again requires for its adoption when we get to it, 2/3 vote of the meeting, you should add after 5 in line 2, one little letter, B as in boy, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B as in boy, Cap B. That is actually the full reference to the section of the Massachusetts General Laws. On behalf of the Advisory Committee, I invite forward Brenda Black to explain what you're being asked to do under Article 3 with regard to fund balance and funding a stabilization fund. Ms. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Brenda Black, 12 Whitcomb Avenue, speaking for the Advisory Committee. This article asks if the town will create a new stabilization fund and transfer $7 million from available excess unassigned fund balance to that stabilization fund. The fund will be titled Capital Project Cost and Debt Service Stabilization Fund, and, as the name states, the fund will be used to pay part of the cost of the large capital projects that received their first step of approval this evening. As you heard earlier, the town has been aware of the need to address the deficiencies at the Foster Elementary School and the North Fire Station for many years. And while town meeting has approved a series of expenditures to explore ways to address these deficiencies and ultimately design solutions for them, the town has been accruing monies in unassigned fund balance with the stated intention of using these funds to help pay for these large capital projects. This stabilization fund is the execution of that intention. By transferring $7 million to that fund, that sum will be set aside and will now be committed to help with paying for these projects. Unassigned fund balance is the formal accounting name for the town's savings account, sometimes also referred to as the rainy day fund. The Advisory Committee has reviewed the proposed plan to transfer the $7 million from unassigned fund balance to the proposed stabilization fund and determined that this action is consistent with the town's financial policy. The policy calls for retaining 16 to 20% of our total annual expenditures in unassigned fund balance. And the message I have for you tonight is that after transferring the $7 million from unassigned fund balance to the stabilization fund, we will still have 20% of our total annual expenditures in unassigned fund balance and therefore available for future needs. It is also consistent with the town's financial policy to use excess unassigned fund balance for capital expenses. And additionally, we've been informed the town's rating agencies consider it a positive step for the town to use available funds for investment in long-term infrastructure and capital projects. So why the sum of $7 million? This is the amount that, as of the most recent completed audit, we know is in excess of the 16 to 20% of total annual expenditures. When the audit currently underway is completed later this year, we will know then how much unassigned fund balance remains and will then be available for next year's town meeting authorizations, including possible additional transfers into this stabilization fund. It must be noted that at this time, no specific plan is being proposed for exactly how the stabilization fund will be used. This is because, until the town actually goes to the bond market and borrows the funds needed for the construction of these projects, it's not possible to know how these funds will be most effective in helping all the property taxpayers in town with the expected increases in property taxes. The important thing to understand is that the use of these funds will remain in town meeting's control, and any authorization to use funds from this stabilization fund will require a 2/3 vote at a future town meeting. One possible use might be to reduce the peaks in property taxes that are predicted in the first 3 to 4 years that the costs of these buildings hit our tax bills. After these initial years, the town will be retiring some of its current debt, and it is predicted that the debt service will then be more level over the subsequent years. In that possible scenario, in which the $7 million is used to reduce debt repayment costs over those first 4 years, this would translate to a reduction in property taxes of $621 spread over those 4 years for the median property owner. Properties assessed at $739,400. For those with properties valued at a lower amount, both their tax bills and the help from the stabilization fund would be less. And for those with properties valued at a higher amount, both their tax bills and the help from the stabilization fund would be higher. The advisory committee and the select board each voted unanimously in support of this article, and we request your support for this stabilization fund, which makes it possible for all of the town's property owners to get some tax relief for the cost of these 2 large capital projects. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the recommended motion under Article 3? If not, we come to vote on the recommended motion under Article 3. Again, the Select Board and the Advisory Committee have unanimously voted in favor of the recommended motion under the article. It requires for adoption 2/3 of the entirety of the meeting in our various venues. Again, I'll read it. It is set forth at page 12. It is hereby recommended that the town establish a capital project cost and debt service stabilization fund under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, and transfer $7 million to this fund from excess unassigned fund balance for the purpose of paying debt service payments for the excluded debt notes and/or bonds to be issued for the new public safety facility and/or the new elementary school to replace Foster School in order to reduce the need to raise these funds through the annual tax rate or for any other lawful purpose. All those in favor of the recommended motion that I have just read, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's a unanimous vote in the gym. Karen, how about the auditorium?
It's a unanimous vote in the auditorium.
Jen?
It's a unanimous vote in the tent.
And Russell?
Unanimous vote in the cafeteria.
Well, now, as you leave, we don't need a motion for reconsideration. Just a couple of things. We do need to do 2 things. First, to remind you of the election. It's set forth on page 13, not the election. The notice of the election is set forth on page 13. And obviously, what we've done tonight, particularly with respect to the debt exclusion on the Foster vote and the debt exclusion on the public safety facility, requires a majority affirmative vote to exempt those projects on the debt service side from 2.5. So do make certain that you vote on the 8th, and there's early voting, and everything is set forth on the town's website. The polls will remain open on election day itself from 7 in the morning until 8, and all of the details are set forth on the town's website. Last, I would entertain from Mr. Ramsey as Select Board Chair a motion, it is not debatable, I'm sorry, it's not debatable, to dissolve the special town meeting 2022 of the town of Hingham.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. We will assume that there has not been an insurgency in the auditorium, under the big top, and in the cafeteria. Thank you. We're adjourned. Dissolved, actually.